Hello all and welcome, and I'm MGTOW philosopher, and in this video I would like to talk about ED, erectile dysfunction. This has been something I've been wanting to talk about for a while because there's a lot of disinformation out there, usually spread by feminists and white knight pussies and male feminists as well, that porn makes your cock not work. Of course, what they really mean is that you can't easily, after a long time being exposed to porn, transition to a real woman, meaning that it changes the cues that get you aroused. Meaning that you watch porn, you get aroused, and then get used to that medium, and then you can't quickly or easily switch to the medium of a real woman. Of course, first I say, big whoop-de-fucking-do. If that really was the case, whoop-de-fucking-do-da. That to me sounds like a good thing. I don't have to deal with women. I'm getting aroused enough by porn. I'm getting what I need from that. And you don't really need a woman. Perfect. But, of course, the feminists, well, they don't want you to be able to just have porn, get off on porn. So they have to demonize it. So now they make porn into something that makes your dick not work. But is it really true? Is it that simple that watching porn changes what gets you aroused, and then in the real world situation you don't? Well, in this episode, I am going to look at two articles. One which is very biased against porn, and one that is much more balanced and realistic in how it looks at things and gives you a much more realistic view of what the truth actually is. So first, let's look at the heavily biased one, shall we? Now, this is very telling. You can tell this was written by a leftist because of the overview. Erectile dysfunction is the inability to get and maintain an erection during normal sexual activity. What does that mean, normal sexual activity? So, here's the thing. What ED means, it doesn't mean that you can't get a boner. It just means that you might, maybe, possibly, could have a difficult time getting a hard-on with an actual woman. Again, if you're not being with actual women, what's the problem? Oh, but this is a problem. There's a big problem because you must be with women. You absolutely must be with women. And if it creates some kind of problem, if it actually does create a problem and make it more difficult for you to be with actual women, oh, well, that is a horrible thing. No, you have to get with us so we can use our magic vaginas to mesmerize you into giving us your money. And that's what it's really all about. Because with a woman, sex is currency. It can occur sporadically, or it may be a long-term or even permanent issue. Oh, now we have the scare tactics of the left. It could be permanent. You could permanently destroy your dick. Ooh. Of course, it'll work just fine with porn, so what the fuck do you care? It's hilarious. You can tell that whoever wrote this, I mean, good Lord, is a feminist. ED can affect men for many reasons. Oh, but this is said porn-induced, so you're really just going to focus on porn, right? Of course. Including physical and psychological causes such as performance anxiety, depression, or poor physical health. But what about watching pornography? Here's what the research shows. Yeah, let's see this research. Research from who? What research? Are you going to tell us? I'd like to see. Porn and sexual anorexia. Sexual anorexia. Are you kidding me? You mean like not eating? Isn't anorexia when you don't eat? You know, like to feel like you're in more control and shit. So sexual anorexia, you're depriving yourself of sex. No, man, I'm watching porn, having sex with the person I love most, me. Oh, that's not good enough. I have to enslave myself to a woman. Ah, I see. Well, ED mostly affects older men. A study conducted in Italy. Italy? Oh, come on now. What kind of research is this when you're going outside the country and having to quote us fucking stats from Italy? Not exactly the science capital of the world, huh? What is Italy known for? Not science. Italy. I mean, maybe they do have a problem there, but it's not ED. It's a bunch of guys living with their mothers. Okay? And not getting married. That's the problem there. Italy. Why don't you just name me a study from Zimbabwe? Are you going out of your way to find things? This is what's called confirmation bias, when somebody has an agenda and then they go looking for the evidence that will prove that agenda. And of course, there's a whole bunch of crackpot theories and studies out there that are total horseshit. But if they fit your agenda, oh, well, then perfect, that'll do. Found that an increase in internet pornography viewing among teenage boys can cause sexual anorexia. What does that mean? Pathological loss of appetite for romantic sexual interactions. That's not even a good comparison. A sexual anorexia would mean you're not having sex. This is talking about losing your desire. Well, they should rename this to like sexual desire anorexia, because you still have sexual desire. You're just less inclined to be with a woman because you don't need the woman because now you got porn. I don't see the problem. Oh, but of course the feminists see the problem, and Western governments like Italian government and other white people governments see the problem, because you have to transfer them goddamn resources to a woman, and if you ain't giving her your cock and she's not getting you enslaved to her with her pussy, well, that's a problem. Pathological loss of appetite. Pathological means you have no control, okay? The notion that watching too much porn causes ED has since spread like wildfire. Of course it has, because of disinformation junkies like you. Spreading this bogus and inflammatory, fear-mongering information. Very interesting. Sex films do not contribute to erectile dysfunction. However, those whose personal values contradict with viewing sex films may be experiencing general shame around sex that also influences their erectile dysfunction. Very strange quote to put in there, considering this story seems to me to be very biased and in favor of the ED narrative. But not all experts think so. Our study and now 2 others have found there's no relationship between the amount of sex films men view and erectile dysfunctioning with their partner, says Nicole Prowse. Woman studying men's cocks, interesting. If only they would do more of that, we might not be walking away so much. Of course, that's not why. If they'd stop taking our shit and be more interested in our cocks, then things would certainly be better. A sexual psychologist and licensed psychophysiologist and licensed psychologist at the Sexual Psychophysiology and Affective Neuroscience Laboratory. Her research with Jim Paus, PhD, was published in Sexual Medicine and was the first peer-reviewed study of this topic. Peer-reviewed! So that study from Italy was not peer-reviewed. Big surprise! In one case, the study found stronger sexual arousal in men who reported viewing more sex films at home, she adds. Only those men who were conservative and in relationships had any relationship between sex film viewing and erectile functioning. Taken together, this means that sex films do not contribute to erectile dysfunction, Prowse notes. However, those whose personal values contradict with viewing sex films may be experiencing general shame around sex that also influences their erectile functioning. So basically, if you have been taught that watching porn is bad, wrong, your partner knows you watch it, you might feel some shame, hence have problems, because the shame you feel becomes associated with sexual desire and influences your ability to get a hard-on when with your partner. I see. So the porn isn't the problem, it's people's hang-ups that are the problem. Gotcha. But porn can affect your sexual appetite. Experts do say, however, that watching pornography can influence a man's sexual appetite. Whoop-de-fucking-do. By the way, you need a study to know this. This is like eating will make you less hungry. This may make it difficult for them to achieve an erection and have an orgasm with a sexual partner. Yeah, because they've worn out their go juice. They've depleted their battery stores. Whoopity fucking do! That's not the same. As some kind of psychological change that changes the cues that get us aroused. Nikki Martinez, PSYDLCPC QRXYZ, what the fuck does all this mean? Says modern access to a wide array of adult material can make it difficult for a man to become aroused with his partner or to participate in sexual activities as they have always have. They have unleashed their true desires and proclivities, and now they struggle to become aroused when this is not involved. Now this is a change. Now they just changed. This is a change. This is a narrative from the very first paragraph of this, but porn can affect your sexual appetite. Of course, this woman has an agenda, and this is back to the psychological changes, and it changes the visual cues and the things that get you aroused, and then you're with a woman you can't get aroused. No, you've just worn out your go juice, you dumb bitch. You have depleted the batteries, that's all. And now they struggle to become aroused when it's not involved. She says the other partner feels rejected as if they were not attractive, and the first partner is often too embarrassed to tell them what is really going on. Bullshit! It can also affect how you look at yourself. LMFTCST. I'm thinking of the Mickey Mouse Club when they're singing QRXYZ or some shit like that when I say all these fucking letters. What the fuck? Says that pornography can create unrealistic expectations of what sex should be like and what your partner should look like and be able to do. Nah, it can. Throwing a baseball at my window could kill somebody because it hits them in the fucking head. What's your point? There's lots of coulda, woulda, shouldas. For lots of men, she says, pornography can engender shame if they feel they are not living up to the standards of the actor. Yeah, I guess lots of things can happen. And then again, they might not also. By the way, standards. Like he's got a big cock, so I should have a big cock? By the way, I do have a big cock. And consequently, for most guys that don't, really, I don't think they give a shit. I think this is speculative nonsense, just leaning in to the biased area of women who don't like this shit. She's trying to use her little degree, LMFT, QSYZ bullshit degree, whatever the hell she's got, to sort of justify her feminist beliefs. Yeah, porn is evil. Porn is evil. Yeah, okay, bitch. Also, not to mention the piece where people can get any fantasy hand-delivered to them. And that's a bad thing? Why? Oh, because in your estimation, they should be participating in what you consider to be normal sexual activity. Yeah, what is normal anyway, bitch? Oh, what you label as normal. I see. So you're going to control what I do in my life. Interesting. Rather than having to open up their door up to their partner about what turns them on. Alex cut us in PSYD. More of these fucking letters. Fucking A. Allison Conasan, PSYD, who practices in New York City, says she doesn't think porn causes erectile dysfunction. Oh, she's. Have you noticed all these psychologists and psychotherapists are she's? But supposedly that women are just like men, supposedly, and they don't have these natural bents to get into specific professions. We were all the same and equal, but most of these fucking psychologists and sex experts are women. For example, compulsive porn watching or watching several scenes at once or quickly switching from one to another creates a lot of stimulation not typically experienced in real-life sexual encounters. This may create ED issues. So she said it's important to look at how someone views pornography. Right? This is just what the article said earlier, that you're essentially running down your batteries. Nothing more. Has nothing to do... Jesus Christ. So what's a guy to do? Watch more porn. That's what. If you think any of these aspects of pornography might be affecting your sexual functioning, Goldberg... Who's Goldberg? Isn't that a fucking wrestler in the WW whatever C or whatever the hell name they changed it? Who the fuck's Goldberg? Was this someone earlier mentioned the article? I don't fucking know. Too many goddamn letters to keep track of. Recommends going on a pornography fast for at least 90 days. 90 days? What? Get the fuck out of here, 90-day pornography fast. Fuck you, motherfucker. This can help soften visual cues. This is back to the visual cues bullshit. A bunch of paragraphs before this shit, it doesn't have anything to do with visual cues. And by the way, even if there was some truth to that it somewhat changes the things that turn you on visually or psychologically, instead of just being your batteries being run down, jerking off a lot, and your go juice being depleted, I say this, so the fuck what? So the fuck what? It keeps us from having to deal with women. And by the way, who says that getting with some cunt and enslaving myself to a hole between her legs is somehow better, than pornography? I say it's worse because it's not worth the consequences. This can help soften visual cues that can become overly developed through regular pornography viewing. She encourages people to explore their sexuality and sensuality through their other senses during this break. This exploration can also include arousal through visual cues, but the visual cues must be three-dimensional. Why must they? Why must they be? Oh, because you say so? Oh, Lord Master Authority figure, because you've got a fucking PhD in the pseudoscience of psychology, I should listen to you. Pass. Formal partner exercises like sensate focus are very helpful in restoring a person's connection to a more robust sensuality. Robust sensuality? Says you! For self-pleasure and purpose, Goldberg encourages masturbating to sensations rather than recall pornographic images. I encourage people to dig deep and explore their sexuality by also making an inventory of their turn-ons outside of porn in the visual realm. By the way, I will acknowledge that there might be some truth to some of the visual cue shit and the psychological aspects of it that get you turned on. But I would also say, whoop-de-fucking-do. Look at the nature of the way things are now, with women taking everything you got just if you fuck her. You fuck her, she can take everything. Has a baby, say goodbye to the next 20 years of your motherfucking life. Because she has all the power, and she can choose whether she has that baby. You have no say. Oh, but I should do what you think is normal. Fuck off, bitch. Now let's take a look at the second article, shall we? And I like this one, because I can tell already from the title that it's a little more balanced, and it doesn't hop all over the fucking place with different people yammering about different pet theories. Don't blame porn for erectile dysfunction. It also might be saying what I want to hear. So, I admit that. The truth is complex. But I acknowledge that some of that stuff is possible, and probably the case, that a lot of porn watching might change visual cues and stuff like that. But then again, I'm saying might, and might not. Because quite frankly, I get with a chick, she's hot, the junk seems to work pretty good, so I don't know what they're talking about. I acknowledge the possibility, but I also say, so the fuck what? The claim in a BBC documentary that the sexual problems experienced by a few young men can be attributed to pornography is just simplistic. It smacks of moral panic. Right, and stupidity. Warning adult content, and the subtitle, it's natural enough that we should look at the sequence of events, exposure to porn, desensitization, erectile dysfunction, see an obvious culture. Natural, but stupid. That's like those idiots who used to think, and still do, that violent video games lead to violent people with no fucking studies. They just make the correlation in their head. Essentially overly simplistic thinking. Just how back in the 50s, when they had rock music, they were thinking, oh, this will corrupt the youth and lead to violence and gangs and murder. The stupidity of people. You can tell the story in a way that sounds plausible. A teenage boy has been furiously masturbating over videos of semi-synthetic bodies in hairless collision for years. Hairless collision. I like this writer. For the first time, he is faced with a real slightly wobbly form of someone his own age. The person doesn't conform to his expectations. He freaks out. He can't get it up. Interesting. But you can tell another plausible story, too. Yeah, because these are all stories, right? You see, the left, they like to tell stories that frighten you. And the right likes to tell more realistic stories, but they don't have fear, and people tend to believe the fearful things more often than not. A teenage boy has been furiously masturbating because he's a teenage boy. For the first time, he's with a real person he can touch, who touches him back. The person is nothing like his expectations. It is nonetheless obviously the most thrilling experience of his life. That's how I remember it. Everything works just fine. If anything, it's a little too efficient. Goddamn right. The Go Juice is at maximum capacity, baby. The first version of the story is one that we worry about, and a new BBC documentary has brought it up again. Of course, because the BBC is feminist central, and the big fat land whales of Europe, and specifically Britain, are in control. So, of course, they push these kind of retarded narratives. According to Angela Gregory, an NHS psychosexual therapist, she might as well be a swami or a sideshow psychic. Porn has led to significant increase in the number of young men who are referred to her as erectile dysfunction. Well, she makes that association in her own head because she has confirmation bias. She has no evidence to prove that. These younger men do not have organic disease. They've already been tested by the GP and everything is fine, she says. So one of the... okay, so this is more or less an argument from ignorance and where you put in your own personal bias. I have no other explanation, so pornography... So, one of the first assessment questions I always ask is about porn. Oh, and of course, by the way, almost all young men watch porn. So, it must be porn. Couldn't be anything else, right? Just like all young men play video games. So, if you ask all criminals if they play video games, they do. So, I have a common link. Video games. Of course, the fact that almost all of them were raised by single mothers. You missed that fact, didn't you, baby? Short of context and reheated by secondhand news reports, what Gregory is describing sounds like a crisis. And for these young men who come to her, it is undoubtedly awful to reach a point where the images you've absorbed have made you physically incapable of responding to the flesh and blood version who is actually interested in you is too depressing for words. Unless, of course, you want to stop your country from popping out more illegitimate children that these young people can't raise. Then it's a good thing. But of course you need all those bastard kids to create more debt. I see. It's natural enough that we should look at the sequence of events, exposure to porn, desensitization, erectile function, and see an obvious culprit. I see. If this account sounds too straightforward, it could be complete. That's because it is. Yeah, of course. The left loves to make things complicated when it serves their purpose. No, it's complicated, not simple. But when it serves their purpose for something to be simple, well, then it's simple too. Whatever serves their narrative. Indeed, it bears some of the hallmarks of moral panic. It implies the existence of a golden age when a six-pack meant beer, breasts were all natural, and reared on organic farms, and our strapping sons of Albion struttled around with erections like hose pipes. It's worth noting, too, that erectile dysfunction is a suspiciously simple problem to focus on, of course. Fix the binary manner of a man's ability to perform up or down. That's the only question. Everyone else will be great as well. If only 24-hour erections would solve the world's problems. The answers, unsurprisingly, are equally binary and hopeless. Block online porn. The campaign logo read on the Daily Mail's report of the story this morning. If we could only get rid of the grot, we'd return to the golden days. Of course, focus on something minute and really that won't solve any problems to distract everyone else from the cancer that is feminism, of course. Let's blame men yet again for watching too much porn. It's their fault they're not getting together with women and having enough babies to repopulate the country. No, it's not because of feminism destroying the country. That couldn't be the problem. Of course not. Here is a more complicated and more realistic account. First of all, if the erections of our youth are in crisis, it is a pretty marginal one. It's absolutely not. Yeah, I mean, people are having enough fucking babies. Geez, I don't see any problem with that. The problem is really people getting together and staying together. Because the big daddy government makes it nearly impossible for a woman to stay loyal to a man because she's got too much incentive not to. It's absolutely not Gregory's fault that her interview has been turned into a diagnosis of general catastrophe. But what? Her? All right, now this I don't understand. Should be him, right? And when we look at the proper evidence, the story isn't quite so scary. In May, a study published in the Journal of Adolescent Health gave a picture of young people's sexual problems that was sad enough itself. About 1 in 10 young men and 1 in 10 young women had experienced a distressing sexual problem for at least 3 months in the last year. Erections, however, do not seem to be in decline. Yeah. Among sexually active young men, the number who reported difficulty getting or keeping one was 3%. Oh, but to the left, 3% is all they need. They like to take marginal cases like transsexuals and gay people and then change the whole society to suit those people. It's called the new normal. The fact that 97% of the group in question don't have a particular problem doesn't lessen the problem for those who do. But it does suggest that it might be the wrong subject for our anxiety, being addressed in the wrong way. Yes, a 3% number kind of implies that throughout history there have always been about that number of people who had some kind of sexual dysfunction, which means that the whole erectile dysfunction thing is essentially a red fucking herring. Moreover, since excessive use of pornography and erectile dysfunction are both associated with depression, causation may not be as so simple. Even for that 3%, we might be looking at two effects of the same root cause. Meaning that depression is the culprit, and the symptoms are greater watching of pornography and erectile dysfunction, thereby having nothing to do with pornography. It goes on to say, I have no doubt that porn can have desensitizing and disastrous consequences, but any solution that starts with its eradication is plainly as much of a fantasy as all those fake breasts. All right, folks, the whole erectile dysfunction thing is more or less a red herring. What they're taking is the most extreme cases, like the left likes to do, and then using that to represent the whole. So, 3% of guys having some kind of problem, and it's not even a direct correlation with pornography is the cause, but depression, which would mean there's actually a very, very small number, probably less than 1/10 of 1%, who are actually having a problem getting erect, with the root cause being pornography. Yet, since women, meaning feminists, and the government, and the global elites, want to essentially make sure that men's assets gets transferred to women, who in turn will spend that fucking money and be irresponsible with that money, and men aren't going to be saving any goddamn money, and essentially getting with women, you spend many times more the amount of money. Yeah, get a mortgage, get that house, get that car, have that kid, spend, create more debt, more debt, more debt, more debt. Which isn't going to happen if you have found a substitute for women, and that is porn. Porn is a direct threat to the New World Order's plan to restructure, destabilize, deconstruct, and then reconstruct societies, that nice little communist utopia that they've been pushing for the past 100 years, which surprisingly hasn't worked as they continue to experiment in countries like Venezuela and Cuba. Both great successes, as we know, especially in Venezuela, where all the dogs and cats are gone because they've eaten them. It goes on to say, if we could just get all the erections out of the way, we could focus on more important things. The normalization of sexual violence, the importance of... By the way, when has sexual violence been normalized? I don't hear anybody saying it's okay to beat up your partner, except maybe a lesbian, because the households that have the highest amount of violence, sexual or otherwise, between partners are lesbian households, not hetero ones, which right there should tell you women are more violent than men. The normalization of sexual violence, the importance of sex education. Well, that's actually pretty important, something they don't do enough of in school anymore. That acknowledges pornography and explains its hopelessness as a guide to reality. Hopelessness. Yeah, it's not supposed to be a guide to reality, you idiot. Who's looking at porn? I think that's a guide to reality. Even the writer now is indulging in some of his own bias. The fostering of self-esteem among an age group that struggled with it long before internet porn was a phenomenon. What's this guy talking about? Do young people these days have a problem with self-esteem? I mean, they're all a bunch of fucking narcissists. They think they can be anything, do anything. They go to college, they study useless subjects, thinking that they're so great and wonderful that they're going to make $150,000 a year when they get out of college. And then they find out that their major in gender studies isn't going to make them any money, and they get angry and they get bitter. And of course, they become even more leftist, which is, of course, what the system wanted. More debt slaves. The cause of sexual distress among young men and women are far more complex and various than erectile dysfunction, which is more or less a red herring. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, of course, because it does. There are those rare cases out there where guys essentially, and yeah, of course, it can cause inability to, say, function as well or get it up maybe if you're like really spanking the banana hard a lot and you deplete your go juice. But that's not the cause of the porn. That's the cause of you jerking off too much. If we don't want young men to think with their penises, perhaps we should stop thinking about them quite so much. Oh, but we have to, because men are the workhorses of society. And if the government and the feminists and the global elites didn't focus on them so much to make them into mindless zombie debt slaves, then their whole entire effort to destroy Western society and reconstruct it as some wonderful communist utopia would fail. And then women, of course, would lose their meal tickets, either through the men taking care of them directly or paying their money to the government and then having the government take care of them. We just can't have that. We have to keep men thinking with their penises and associating those thoughts with real-life women and not with porn, of course. So as you've seen, folks, ED is more or less a red herring. While both of these articles have pointed out that there are cases where excessive porn watching and jerking off will make it difficult to get it up at times, that has nothing to do with the porn. It just has to do with the guy depleting his go juice, essentially draining the battery, and guess what? Our batteries recharge, so it's no big deal. We eat too much, guess what? In a few hours, we'll be hungry again. There's always a new appetite coming along. There's always a new erection coming along, so big fucking deal. And by the way, they reported that only 3% of the cases have this problem. And in those cases, the main root cause of too much porn watching to the point where you actually couldn't get it up was depression, not some kind of porn addiction. Porn is not the root cause, okay? Jerking off too much can be the cause, but not porn. Porn is a red herring. It's just another thing for the left to focus on, to control the young, and it's much more focused on now. It's really, really a focus because the left has to control you, has to control the young people, has to control the men, cannot have them finding surrogates, finding replacements for women. Erectile dysfunction, utter horse shit. I am the MGTOW philosopher, and I wish you a good day. Take care.